Hi everyone, it's Dr. E. Welcome to your week 3 instructional video. Bear with me, my allergies are really taking it out of me, and a lot of you are probably feeling the same way. So just, the weather is unforgiving, but I wanted to start off by saying that I appreciate all the work and effort everyone has been putting into this course. I have been so happy to read your work and to see your engagement and to see the effort you're putting into things like the weekly quiz. So keep up that work. I know that this is about the time in the summer session where the exhaustion might start to set in. So just keep pushing, keep trying to keep your energy levels up. This is an intense week, but one that is full of things that you should be familiar with, and you're not starting from the ground. You have already worked your way up with some of this. So just keep that energy up and let's push through a few more weeks. I'm going to jump to our content area for our weekly module. And you'll see that for this week we have a video to watch. It's by Ron Finley. It's a TED Talk and it's titled Guerrilla Gardener in South Central LA. This is a really popular video with a lot of students because he is just doing something that is very positive for the community and something that, we can definitely respect and gain insights from. And he's, just really real. I don't know how else to say it. You'll see. Chapter 7 is about annotating, summarizing, and responding. And then that, connects to distinguishing facts from misinformation because it's all about how we're reading, how we're working with materials, what materials or resources we choose to support our ideas. Because in academic writing, most of the time we need to support our ideas with research. So we need to be able to distinguish any kinds of misinformation from good information that we can use to support our ideas. And that starts with making sure that we are properly annotating what we're reading, summarizing, giving credit and responding, that kind of thing. So things are hopefully connected as you see them. So this week, I keep trying to move this over and it's going to bother me forever, but I'm just going to let it go. So this week you have the weekly video as well as the food journal video. There are some instructional materials that it might be beneficial to review. And then we get to the work. And like I said, you already know all of this work. You've done, a discussion post before, you've submitted a food journal, and we're really just adding to what we previously submitted. So you are not starting with nothing. And you've done a mind map. So this is all familiar and hopefully it doesn't feel too overwhelming, but make sure you're managing your time well. You're finding ways to get some of this stuff out of the way before Sunday, so you're not waiting until what you feel like is the last minute and then pushing into that grace period, because I don't want it to be, 11:59 on Tuesday night and your power goes out and you don't get to submit within that grace period. So really only take that time for emergencies. All right, here is the link to the Q&A discussion post area, and you have your videos to watch here. I put Finley's video here, but you also have the link up in your schedule, so whatever way's easiest for you. This is the food journal instructional video, and it's just generally about what we're working to do in our food journals. And talking about how we will build on these, writing submissions to something that is longer for the, closer to the end of the summer session. These are the guidelines for the food journal assignment if you need a, physical copy of that or something to look at. So week 3's discussion is about distinguishing facts from misinformation. So it's going to require that you really engage with those ideas in the chapter. And I just think that in this day and age, this is such an important chapter because the ideas in it are so relevant. We see so much information on a daily basis. We are taking it in, and oftentimes, far too often probably, we're not questioning the validity of what we're seeing. We have things like AI that make it very easy to create false information, images, videos, things that appear very real and very true, but we have to learn how to, fine-tune our critical thinking, fine-tune the way that we're looking at these different sources of media. Okay, so I did put here, remember, It's a writing course. So what we're really focusing on is effectively communicating our ideas, right? I'm not somebody who wants to pick and be really nitpicky about grammar. That's not my goal. I'm not going to take off zero point 0.5 points for every comma splice or anything like that. That just doesn't seem very productive to me in terms of, offering you feedback and grades. I'm really looking for your ideas. The problem becomes if those, errors with grammar make it difficult to follow your ideas, right? So use all the tools that are available to you. Download and use Grammarly. Use Microsoft Word to draft and edit your work. Utilize the spell check and the grammar check features in that software program, and then you can copy and paste it in the text box. So use those tools. Now, I'm not saying to only rely on those. We need to be, judges of our own writing in some way. We need to review our own writing, which we'll be doing for our food journal assignment. But why not use everything that we can? So this is about, how to spot fake news. There's an infographic that's really useful in the chapter. So take some time to make sure you're reading that chapter and looking through it to answer these questions. So I'm looking for 2 to 3 paragraphs. I don't know if I've put that in here. So I'll update that to, note that I want 2 to 3 paragraphs that directly connect to those ideas in the chapter. Show that you've read, show that you have engaged with those ideas, right? Don't be overly general. Our whole purpose in academic writing is to show what we know, show what we've learned. And this is a good way to just get in that practice and work on that. Okay, so we have the week 3 discussion that's due on Thursday, and then we have the mind map for week 3, which should look pretty familiar, and this will be based on Finley. So just read the instructions, but also I have given you an example here of how to quote when we're thinking about using a video. We need what's called a timestamp instead of what, we would typically have something like a page number when it comes to a print document, or even our textbook has page numbers. You just have to kind of find them in the view screen. So this is how we note, out of this entire video, this is where and when Finley identifies this certain thing. Typically, if we had a longer quote, we would have Finley and minute 1, 50 seconds to minute 1, 53 seconds. We'd have a very specific length of time. I don't think that's truly necessary. Make sure you're following whatever instructor you're taking at the time. Don't take my word as gospel, but I feel like we don't need that much. We just need the starting point of when he says these things. So you can review the instructional video, the assignment guidelines for the mind map, use whatever template you'd like as long as it's following those guidelines. And I'm just going to jump in here and say the random word for this week's video is going to be pencil. I wish I could get more creative, but I always wait till the moment, and that's as creative as I can get. So pencil. Then we have our food journal for week 2, or I'm sorry, it's week 3, but it's our second food journal. And what we're doing is adding to what we previously wrote. I'm trying to kind of give us a sense of the steps involved in academic writing, what we really should be doing. And part of that is revising and editing, right? So we're taking our previous submission, which was about a meal that we ate in a particular week, and you are going to now take time to revise and edit that, right? I will give you a grade, but ultimately what you're doing is looking at it through a critical lens. You're reviewing it. If you need to go and ask somebody else with fresh eyes to look at it, then by all means do so. Again, use all the tools that are available to you. But this is really to give you a sense of, when you have fresh eyes, when you don't write it, an hour before the due date in time, you will, pick up on things that you might want to change, you might want to specify. You'll be a more critical reader if you take that time to revise and edit. So you can just take that submission and add to it with information from Ron Finley's TED Talk, okay? So make sure you're reading through all of this. I've put last week's journal prompt in case you need to revisit that, and you should have saved a copy of that somewhere, but you can also go to the assignments area. I'm going to click on this, and you should have, a link that you can click here, right? I unfortunately, our view does not allow for that, but it should be here. So you're adding to that, and here is a copy of the template, or if you want to use Google Docs. And I again put the example of quoting here so that you can add a quote to support your idea from Finley's TED Talk. Please don't use the same quotes you use in your mind map, but whatever quote you choose, make sure that it is there to support your ideas. You give context for those ideas. Don't just quote drop. I'm not a fan of quote dropping, which means you just kind of drop a quote in. Any old quote will do without explanation, without making connections. Again, part of what we're doing with academic writing is using research to support our ideas. But if your audience is not seeing how that research is actually supporting your ideas, then we've missed the mark, right? We need to make sure that we're doing that. So take some time to read through all of this and let me know if you have any questions. And this is again due on Sunday. So we're just adding to what we've already done, as well as revising what we've already done, right, with our own fresh eyes. Okay, then you have your week 3 quiz, which is based on absolutely everything this week. So that's something that I really always recommend to complete last. And then here's the checklist. Remember, the checklist is just there as a tool for you. It doesn't mean, I can't really access what you have clicked on in the checklist, so it doesn't mean you've submitted something, right? Anytime you upload a document and submit it in the assignment folder, you should get a confirmation email from D2L, which is really handy, right? And you can always go back and double check that you submitted a discussion post, and you should see a grade for your quiz because those are graded automatically. And remember that you can take those more than once and it will only record your highest grade, right? They're getting more intensive every week, right? This week's quiz is worth 50 points because it is over all of this stuff and assignments, right? So I want to make sure that those are worth your time. In addition to it, of course, being worth your time to read everything, complete all the work, yada, yada. All right. I hope everyone's doing well and staying dry. It is currently pouring and thundering outside, so keep an eye on that. Stay safe. And let me know what you need. Thanks, y'all. Good luck this week.